everyone, it's Sharana from Hero Waits, and today I'm going to be reviewing BMF episode 4, Heroes, and we see that this week's episode, it opens up when Meech is younger. He at the store trying to get his little Mac Daddy on, trying to get the little breezies real quick, and he was being a good little gentleman as well, which I didn't understand why the guy at the front basically had to call him out, talking about go ahead and get the food stamps. I was like, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being on food stamps, okay? Let me say that one more time, louder for the people in the back. There is nothing wrong with being on food stamps, all right? So the girls, they missed out on their little blessing making fun of him. They ended up paying for his food. And so we see when he goes outside, we see that Pat comes up to him and basically says, like, never be ashamed of who you are and where you're from. And then he gave him some money and told him to go and impress the girls, which, yeah, no matter where you are in life, I think that's some really great advice. Please don't forget where you come from, because don't you just hate brand new people when they get on and they start acting brand new? Don't nobody want to deal with nobody like that. But afterwards, we see that, you know, Meech says in the voiceover that outside of his dad, that Pat was one of the men that he looked up to the most. He had such an influence on his life. And so this kind of leads us into this episode when essentially he's losing his faith in Pat, when he was basically becoming a man himself and he has to branch out and do things his own way. And so we see that Meech's has a new stash house in the suburbs, so essentially where nobody would really look to find them, so they don't get into all of the mishaps that they had these past couple of episodes trying to keep a stash house. And so essentially we see that Terry told Meech that, hey, you know, you should have stayed out of the business, mom and dad with the mortgage. Now he left, and then Meech is just like, I don't care, I'm tired of hearing them argue anyway, it's probably for the best. And so we see that Terry and Meech are butting heads, not only about this, but they're butting heads about a lot of things, especially within this episode. But we see that B. Mickey, like, I was confused. So how do you give somebody their address and the keys to their house for a house that you don't own? Because when he saw B. Mickey basically sent Kato and Hoops up there to go ahead and get the weight so they can move it. And even Meech was just like, where is B. Mickey? And so they were like, hey, his mama's sick, she's in the hospital. He was like, I don't care, I've been paging him this whole time. I don't know, clearly Meech has like, it's like a father-son thing with him and B. Mickey, because the way that he get on him so much, I know that he truly cares about him, and he said that he's been worried about him anyway. So I don't know what's going on with them, but basically he was cursing Kato out. Meech just spent all his time cursing Kato and B. Mickey out this entire time. But we see that Meech has an appointment with Pat anyway. And so he has to go to Pat, and he's basically asking for more weight, making sure that he can get stuff up front now. They don't need to front for him anymore. But he was just like, no, that's you getting ahead of yourself. It's not your time yet. And so essentially we see that, you know, Pat is trying to continue to micromanage them so they don't outgrow him and eventually lead him, which is what they basically end up doing anyway towards the end of this week's episode. And so we see that Meech has a conversation with one of Pat's associates, Rock, and Rock is basically telling him, like, hey, he can't give you what he don't have. So it's not that he doesn't trust you guys, it's the fact that he doesn't have the type of pull that he used to have in the first place. And so essentially that he tells him that there's somebody else he might be able to hook him up with. But I was like, dang, like, would y'all trust somebody that's turning their back on the other person? I just felt like it just didn't sit right in my spirit, y'all. It didn't sit right in my spirit at all. But we see that Meech tells Terry that, hey, like, the reason why I need to do this is because Pat is essentially, he's addicted, he's smoking a product. And so he basically tells him that he fell off, and this is why I'm doing all of this, to try to help Terry understand, like, why all of a sudden Meech wants to make this big play anyway. And so he wants to get his coke outright. But it seems like Terry really isn't with what he's trying to do. But as his little brother, he's always going to ride or die for Terry in the first place. But we see that, you know, Terry has a lot going on with himself. He has a baby's christening. He's trying to, like, really show up and show out because he's trying to keep the family as a whole together still, especially since his dad left. And so essentially they went to Lord and Taylor. I was like, I forgot all about Lord and Taylor. They used to be like the creme de la creme store back in the day at the mall. But we see that he took Wanda and Nikki, essentially trying to get some nice outfits for the christening, wants to get the whole family together. I didn't like how he told Wanda to change her hair, and I really didn't like the fact that she actually ended up doing that, because I thought the goal was cute and that's what was in at the time. Let her be. Why are you trying to be somebody that you're not? And so we see that They're at the mall, so he gives them some money, tell them do their thing. And so we see that Lamar Raggedy Behind was at the mall too with the 50 boys. And when Terry walks into the Foot Locker, essentially, you know, they roll up on him like, what's good, son? And it looked like something was about to happen, but Nikki and Wanda walks in and they have the baby with them. And so Lamar drops some money at his feet like, I know I gotta, you know, you need money. You know, need money for diapers. But Slick noted he going to hell for talking about, oh, look at the baby. He got eyes just like his daddy when the daddy eyes messed up. I was like, Slick, you going to hell for that. But I did laugh. I'm not going to lie to you. I actually did laugh at it. But we see that Terry and Meech meet up later. They're basically at this bar. They're trying to meet up with a new connect. And essentially, you know, Meech is all about partying, talking to the girls. Terry's about his business. He curved old girl who ended up being Big L at the table. She was trying to get to know him a little bit more. He was like, Beesh, I ain't checking for you. I was like, you better be faithful to Wanda or it's your ass. But essentially, he just curved her. I was like, dang, like, you don't want to be like, hey, I have a child, I have a girl, like, don't mean no disrespect. He was just rude as all be all. But we see that Meech ends up going to his baby mama's house. Lori, which I forgot her name. Is that old girl from Empire? I forgot. Y'all gonna tell me in the comment section who she is. I forgot off the top of my head. I watched this a minute ago. But we see he goes to the baby mama Lori house. He got some juju fruits, which juju fruits go hard, y'all. That's like my mama's favorite candy. I don't know if it's enough to make you take your panties out, but juju fruits go hard. And so essentially, when he came over, she was like, what you picking her up for? Let's put her back down. Let me go ahead and get my little maintenance check, okay? Get my brakes checked real quick. And so they start getting it out. I was like, girl, you gonna take your pants and drawers off in front of the baby? Y'all didn't even want to make it to another room. Then on top of that, y'all just left the baby in the living room by herself. Like somebody could have just came through, snatched the baby, y'all getting it on in the boom boom room, closing the door. I was just like, wow. But it was how Lori kicked him out afterwards, like, hey, okay, what you about to do? Like, chop chop, get out of my house. And he was like, I thought I was spending time with y'all. And she was like, you know what it is. And she's like, and at the end of the day, you don't just show up to my house unannounced. And if you want to spend time with me and your child, make an appointment. I was like, that is cold-blooded right there. But girl, at least she got her some. That's all I'm gonna say. At least she got her some. So we see that they're having Lucille, Charles, and Pastor Swift needs, they're all having a conversation, the lawyer, and essentially, you know, she's trying to get more information and try to figure out what type of case they have, how she's going to approach all of this. Now, she knows that she was disrespectful when she was like, is your eye wandering? And I said, ma'am. She said she wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I was like, can you at least, like, try to rephrase how you're saying stuff, because it's not giving me what you think it's giving me. It's giving me offensive, okay? And so Charles even got upset as well. And then Lucille was like, why you always tripping? And I was like, yes, because Charles, you be having me stressed the hell out every single week. Don't it hurt? Ain't it just a lot to be mad all day, every day? Just mad all the time. I'm just like, sir, chill out. So we see that she was like, do you have a problem where you just don't trust her? Or you got a problem that basically she is Pastor Swift's niece? And he was like, both. I'm like, did Lucille and Pastor Swift get it on back in the day? Because he really has a lot of contempt for Pastor Swift, played by Snoop Dogg, who cracks me up every time I see him. But he has a lot of contempt for the pastor. So did they have an affair? Like, what is the deeper story here? Because I need a backstory as to why Charles has such an issue with him. But she basically ends up explaining, like, hey, I'm just trying to make sure that I have all the info so I know how to kind of, you know, play this, but know that I have your best interests at heart and I know exactly what I'm doing. So just, like, chill out for a little bit. But in the meantime, we see that Terry and Meech, they have this meeting to try to go to meet Rocks Connect. And so they end up at this very preppy, like, clubhouse. And I was like, so let me get this straight. Y'all knew where y'all was going, and that's what y'all wore. And what killed me even more on top of that was the fact that Terry thought that I'm going to put on khakis, but I'm still going to have the leather jacket with the glasses, with the big chains. I was just like, you didn't want to try to fit in? And so essentially they end up getting a note after the front desk person basically calls them the N-word. Not that with the R, just the regular N-word, which I felt them because Meech was doing a lot to be, like, he was just doing the most to be doing the most. And so essentially they get a note saying, meet me outside. And so we see that, I'm sorry, I'm always tired. So we see that they end up getting kidnapped because the dudes come outside, they put a gun on them, they kidnap them, throw them in a truck, then they bring them to a field, and it's Pat, y'all. Pat that found out what the heck was going on. Then I see Rock there, and I was like, yo, so this was a setup from the beginning? What? So he basically cursing them out. Everybody shook, okay? Like, Terry shook, Meat shook, I'm shook, okay? And so essentially he basically says, like, don't you know that I know everything that happens in this town? Like, where, like, what is going on? What are y'all doing? And so essentially he was like, hey man, like, he was like, it ain't nothing against you. I just had to do what I had to do. And he was like, I respect that. I get it. But this dude, and then he started beating him with a shovel, beating Rock with a shovel. And I love the shot on how they do it. It kind of reminds me of like how they did the whole thing when Negan killed like Glenn and Abraham. Sorry if y'all don't watch Walking. Well, if you don't watch it, it don't even matter. But when he starts hitting them with the shovel, I thought that was shot really nice. But it was very triggering for Terry and Meech watching all of this happen. Because when I say Pat, I was like, Pat, he dead. I didn't even know you could really kill somebody with a shovel like this. But I think he dead, honey. And so essentially he tells them, like, you know, give me my money and clean this body up. And so in the midst of basically all of this happening, there is some things that are happening with Lamar, and I'm gonna cut to him real quick because we see that that he shows up to the food truck operation, right? And so then basically he tells everyone about the Stone Burgers, and so everybody was like, oh, I want to try the Stone Burger. Y'all got a secret menu? Like, how dare you, not knowing that it's really drugs? And so essentially they have to close early. And then we see that, you know, the next day they have more muscle up there to try to protect them. But as Kato and Hoops are having a conversation, Hoops is like, you know what? What if he did this in order for us to have everybody here so that the stash house would be empty? And of course, when he gets there, the stash house is trash. They found the stash, which of course, because Kato raggedy snitch behind told them, but essentially before Hoops could leave to tell anybody, Lamar shows up and basically he starts shooting. They shot Hoop in the arm and I was like, oh snap, Hoop now, Hoop, man. And so then he basically gets them back, but he misses. And then basically that's when Lamar came in with a little Uzi and then he got shot again. I was like, oh Lord, Hoop's not gonna make it through this, y'all. But we see that Kato comes in to save the day and starts shooting back. He was almost a goner if Kato wouldn't have helped him, which also helped earn their trust, because when we see that B. Mickey and Hoops show up to tell Terry and Meech what has actually happened, the first thing that the Meech thinks is that it was actually Kato who was the one who snitched. But he was like, no, if she hadn't come to save me, I wouldn't be allowed to even tell you what's going on. So I know for a fact that she not the snitch, even though she really truly is the snitch. So we see that Lamar is waiting for her when she comes home, and essentially he like pulled her up, threw her on the ground, pulled a gun on her, put the gun in her mouth, and basically her dad and Lamar had a relationship back in the day, which is the only reason why she is still alive, which is why he is her mole on the inside. And so basically he reminds her, like, if you ever shoot at me again, hoe, he ain't calling her hoe, but it just, you know, for a little added dramatic effect. He was like, if you ever shoot at me again, okay, your daddy ain't gonna be able to save you, okay? And so essentially he ends up leaving. And for some reason, I guess when you have a near-death experience, you just want to go get you something. And so she shows up to B. Mickey's place unexpectedly. She basically like, you got a condom? And he was like, yeah, what color you want? And I was like, B. Mickey, you be ruining the mood all the time, but I did laugh at it. I was like, what last time it was clothes burning, now you got different color condoms. Way to tell me that you don't be getting none without telling me you don't be getting none on a regular basis. But they end up smashing. Then we see that, speaking of smashing, Lamar is taking Slick's advice. He's still working in. Got Zoe telling him, hey, daddy, I love you. He doing story time with her. Then he gives Monique a lovely necklace. And so Monique, you know, he started trying to kiss up on her. She was like, no. She didn't say it like that, but I'll just say, you know, they be kissing up on you. And they be like, stop, I ain't doing nothing with you. You know, my parents watch. I'm just saying this is what my friends tell me they be doing because I don't be doing it because I'm a virgin. But, you know, I mean, I guess she was feeling everything because he was like, if you don't want to do nothing, baby, that's cool. Like, I'm telling you, I'm here for the long run. Baby, when I say she busted wide open so quickly, they couldn't even get their clothes out. They didn't even make it to the room. They just doing bang, bang on the couch and everything. I was just like, okay, well, at least Lamar took Slick's advice and it seems to be working out just fine for him. But things aren't going too well for Detective Bryant. So we see that they have this new task force where they're trying to cut down on the drug dealing in Detroit. And so they're in a meeting. They're looking for J-Mo, who's missing because his mom reported him missing. But also, too, they have Lamar. They have Meech up there, Terry up there. And so they know. I'm so sorry, y'all. I swear. I'm trying to, like, I'm awake, but my body is telling me something different. So essentially, they're saying that they're all mixed up in this. Detective Bryant, he's trying to like be like, nah, man, like it can't be them. His little raggedy ass part in the back, like, nah, I ain't buying it. Clearly, we know you're not buying it, sir. And so we see that they end up later on finding J-Mo's body in the river. Even Detective Bryant gets checked by one of his colleagues that he actually trained, basically saying, I want you to follow the code that you told me to follow, alluding that he knows that he's a dirty cop as well. But we see that later in the episode that Meech ends up going to talk to Detective Bryant to give him some extra money. Bryant is like, I'm done. We ain't doing this no more. Y'all done did too much. And so he was just like, at the end of the day, you need me a lot more than I actually need you. And so he was like, we ain't done for nothing. And he basically ends up leaving. Now they end up having the christening. Everything's going good. I was like, why Terry look like he don't want to be there? Because I was just a little confused for a moment. But we see that he is still having issues with what transpired the night before. We see everything playing out into his mind where he sees himself, digging the empty grave. Then he sees his baby in the grave as well. And so this is making him highly emotional. And so we see that obviously you saw when Meech tried to throw it back on him, like, I knew you weren't ready for this. And I'm like, sir, how are you blaming him when you the one who got them in this predicament in the first place? But there might be some actual truth to it that maybe he's not actually ready to fully live this lifestyle yet, judging by how this is really wearing a lot on him. But we also saw in 2 weeks ago when we saw how B. Mickey killing J-Mo, how essentially Meech was having a hard time with that as well. So it seems like on both sides of the spectrum, they're both dealing with issues in a different way about how dangerous this game actually is. But we see that at the end of the christening, it seems like everybody on a good page. They having a good time. Even their daddy want to come eat with them. But then Detective Bryant raggedy behind come with his raggedy ass partner saying that he want to ask some questions to Terry and Meech. And so essentially Charlie's like, I lost my appetite. Y'all do y'all. And so essentially it just ruins the whole vibe of everything. And so we see that towards the end of the episode, we see that the lady that Terry curved the hell out of at the bar, we essentially see that she's actually going to be the new connect. The only rule of thumb is she only wants to do business with Terry. She will not meet with anyone, talk to anyone else. Terry is her only point in contact. Did y'all feel like he was kind of had some like romance vibes? Did I make that up? Because I know he better not be cheating on Wanda. Because first of all, and also too, Terry, what do you have against Oral? Okay? Because you was being all weird to Wanda, and then you was being all weird to Meech when he said that he had a little threesome and stuff. So I'm just, what happened to you? Tell me what happened so I can understand why you so against this. But essentially, they have a new connect now, and then we kind of see this transition, right? We saw how Pat was a father figure to Meech, but Meech had to take his own way when he decided to kind of leave Pat as, being a distributor. And now we see that Terry is following in Meech's lead and doing the same thing as he makes his own connection with Big L. And so we'll see how that's going to play out for the rest of the season. But I'm just waiting on somebody to figure out what the heck Kato is up to, how she's snitching. Meech is on to it. Meech ain't never liked Kato in the first place. But with her shooting at Lamar, that might have actually helped gain some trust. So I'm very interested to see how all of this is playing out. But I would like to know in the comment section below, how are you feeling about BMF? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to keep watching? Let me know in the comment section below. What did you think about this week's episode? What do you think about the show as a whole? But as always, my name is Sharonda from Pay Your Weights. And if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends, and make sure you hit that notification bell. And I love you guys 3000. And until I see you again,